Mohon tunggu sebentar ya Bapak Ibu. Masih sedang setting sebentar. Oke. Selamat siang Bapak Ibu semua. Senang sekali pada hari ini kita bertemu lagi di season of Bank yang ke-67. Terima kasih kepada Bapak dan Ibu yang telah menyempatkan hadir, baik secara offline di BNC 3 maupun online di Zoom meeting kita. Siang ini kita kedatangan tamu istimewa, eh, Dr. Kun Meng Wong dari Singapore Botanical Garden. Oh, untuk pembukaan acara ini, kami akan mempersilahkan Pak Kapus dari Pusat Riset Biosistematik dan Evolusi untuk memberikan sepatah dua patah kata. Mungkin kami persilahkan. Silakan Pak Kapus.
Baik, terima kasih Mbak Yesi dan Bapak Ibu semua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Suara saya terdengar ya Bapak Ibu ya, mohon maaf. Ya,
Terdengar
jadi
dengan lancar.
baik, terima kasih banyak Bapak Ibu, terima kasih. Thank you Dr. Wong for coming to Indonesia. Probably is your not first time ya, several time to Indonesia. But I'm sorry I will talk to Bahasa because maybe all of participants here is Indonesian. Then I'm pretty sure that you are understand Bahasa because you are Malaysian. Oke, terima kasih banyak Bapak Ibu, terima kasih Dr. Wong atas kesediaan hadir ke Indonesia, apa namanya untuk salah satu mengisi kegiatan rutin kami di SOS sharing session yang ke-67 begitu ya. Jadi sudah cukup panjang perjalanan kami di SOS ini. Jadi uh, Dr. Wong, terima kasih banyak untuk menyampaikan materi yang sangat menarik begitu ya. Jadi tentang apa namanya Southeast Asia dan Borneo Land Biodiversity begitu ya. Jadi topik yang sangat sangat menarik bagi kami. Saya melihat juga dari partisipan ada yang dari Kalimantan Barat, ada yang Bapak Ibu dari apa namanya dari Taman Nasional juga hadir di sini karena memang acaranya sangat tepat sekali seperti narasi yang kami sampaikan bahwa memang saat ini kami sedang merunning uh, ekspedisi biodiversitas terestrial yang justru saat ini juga sebagian besar dari tim-tim terbaik kami sudah berada di Kalimantan Barat begitu di Taman Nasional Betung Kriun dan Danau Sentarum yang besok rencananya besok pagi akan ada tim susulan yang akan berangkat ke sana sehingga total tim kami, peneliti kami yang akan berada di lokasi berjumlah lebih dari 30 orang begitu ya. Dan ini akan menjadi gelombang pertama dari kegiatan ekspedisi riset di Taman Nasional Betung Kriun dan Danau Sentarum di Indonesia. Jadi ini adalah apa namanya momen yang sangat tepat dengan apa namanya seminar atau SOS kali ini yang menghadirkan narasumber yang sangat kredibel begitu ya, sudah sangat lama bekerja dengan Kalimantan sehingga nanti akan banyak memberikan apa namanya data-data, banyak memberikan apa update-update terkait dengan tumbuhan terutama ya yang di Kalimantan. Jadi memang eh, seperti yang kita ketahui, ya, seperti yang saya sampaikan juga pada SOS sebelumnya bahwa memang Kalimantan mega biodiversity. Tetapi data kami di kami yaitu temuan barunya memang masih cukup sedikit begitu ya jika dibandingkan dengan pulau-pulau besar lain di Indonesia. Karena ya dari Kalimantan catatan kami hanya sekitar 136 novel spesies yang kami temukan dalam 10 tahun terakhir begitu ya. Cukup jauh juga bahkan dengan Jawa sekalipun. Di Jawa sendiri itu cukup banyak begitu, ada 200 lebih. Kemudian di Papua lebih banyak lagi. Jadi bukan berarti Kalimantan tidak banyak, tetapi mungkin memang karena unexplore itu problemnya, gitu ya. Jadi mudah-mudahan dengan salah satu ekspedisi ini juga akan dapat memberikan tambahan dari temuan-temuan baru kita di sana. Termasuk yang akan disampaikan Dr. Wong ini akan sangat berharga bagi kami sebagai bekal kami nantinya untuk melakukan ekspedisi dan data awal kami nanti di sana. Ya, seperti itu mungkin yang bisa saya sampaikan karena memang sekali lagi bahwa kajian Kalimantan tidak akan ada habisnya begitu. Dr. Wong dalam waktu dekat juga mungkin akan pensiun tetapi ilmu tidak pensiun begitu ya. Jadi ilmu akan tetap berlanjut. Dr. Wong juga mungkin akan tetap berkarya terutama untuk kajian-kajian di Kalimantan juga dan Southeast Asia secara umum begitu. Jadi itu sedikit pengantar buat diskusi kita hari ini. Terima kasih banyak atas kehadiran Bapak Ibu yang lebih dari 120 ini di Zoom meeting, kemudian di onsite juga mungkin akan lebih banyak juga begitu ya. Jadi totalnya mungkin 150-an kami berharap begitu. Jadi atensinya cukup tinggi. Terima kasih banyak sekali lagi atas kehadiran Bapak Ibu dan kita bisa menyimak bersama-sama apa yang akan disampaikan Dr. Wong nanti. Terima kasih banyak. Saya sampaikan ke Bu Yesi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Baiklah, terima kasih Pak Arif sambutannya. Tanpa berlama-lama lagi, acara ini akan saya serahkan ke moderator. Yang bertindak sebagai moderator kali ini adalah Alex Sumadijaya. Waktu dan tempat kami persilahkan. Silakan.
Terima kasih Pak Kapus Arif Nurtanto untuk pembukanya. Sebentar, mohon tunggu sebentar. Oke, sesi hari ini spesial karena kita kedatangan tamu yang dan beberapa mungkin bilingual. So, again, thank you for the audience in the room. Thank you. I have a privilege to convene this occasion, this special activities. Hello.
Yang apa namanya protes.
Okay, tes 1, 2, 3. Okay, baik. Sorry about that. So again, this is a very special occasion because of two things. One, this is a memorial lecture to honor Dr. Kuswata Kartawinata, a very eminent figure of botanists in Indonesia. He was perhaps the first ecologist in Indonesia, and he basically combined taxonomy and ecology into a good piece, and he advised or supervised a number of students either from Indonesia or elsewhere from outside of Indonesia. And Kuswata Kartawinata was one of the finest. And our speaker here, Kunmeng, would like to dedicate this session for him. And we also have Bu Jenny here. Thank you, Bu Jenny, for joining us. And the second special moment is that we have the figure from Malaysia, our guest, which is Kunmeng Wong. And frankly, I just met him in person like an hour or two ago, but we have exchanged emails and WhatsApp and so on and so forth. And this is a very, perhaps for botanists, this is a good and a perfect moment because this is the person behind the authorship of K.M. Wong, who described a lot of species, who wrote a lot of scientific papers, and you know, that he will show to us later, the main engine behind three flora of Sabah and Sarawak. So his exploits, I believe, are legendary, and he will talk a lot about Borneo, which fits in our context because tomorrow we will leave, at least like a quarter of Research Center for Biology staff will leave for Borneo. And without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Kunmeng to deliver the lecture. It's on. It's on.
Convener, Dr. Alex, gracious hosts from BRIN, for having me here, and honored colleagues in botany, particularly from the Bogo Herbarium. I'm so pleased to be able to stand here today and honor the memory of Dr. Kutswata Kartawinata. He was certainly a very important personality in the history of botany in Indonesia, as well as the ecological sciences, actually. And latterly, he went into conservation. And so here is a great person. And today, we are going to endeavor an overview of Southeast Asia's and Borneo's rainforests, the wealth of plant life, plant diversity, and the documentation and conservation. These are along the lines that Dr. Kuswata or Bakus had dearest to his heart. So let's get on with the lecture.
Okay.
Next. Is that visible to the audience?
Well,
there's some blockage at the top, right?
Ya, ini kelihatan atasnya. Bagian atas kelihatan jelas tidak?
Anyway, if we look at vegetation worldwide,
okay, yeah.
The previous slide.
Okay.
If you look at vegetation worldwide, the different climatic climaxes or the highest, richest form of vegetation that can develop anywhere on Earth is basically governed by a few parameters. Precipitation, rainfall, or humidity is one of them, and temperature is the other. And these two combined outline the major environmental regimes that can host the plant life that can be found in each region. Now, there are also other things, like, for example, site factors, soils, and other natural features, including wind and so on, and also human influence. Can they see the thing without the top portion?
Iya, itu bisa dihilangin nggak ya?
Okay.
It's by default.
Okay, we just move on.
Yeah, just move on.
Okay.
You can see from the camera.
Oh, all right. Next.
Yeah, okay, next.
Okay. And when we are talking about the richness of plant life in Southeast Asia, the main region is actually this region, okay, which includes the world's largest archipelago, and most of it is, in fact, belonging to Indonesia. This is a region of spectacular plant richness. Next. And Southeast Asia is also known as an assemblage of hotspots, biodiversity hotspots. Now, the arrow shows the areas in Southeast Asia that have been identified as special hotspots, and Sundaland, where in particular West Malaysia, this whole region is the phytogeographic region that we call Malaysia, is of immediate relevance when we are talking about Southeast Asia. And here is Western Malaysia, Borneo and Sumatra and so on. Next. Yeah. Now, what is a hotspot and how would we define a hotspot? The original use of the term hotspot is, in fact, for funding purposes, where areas which contain more than 0.5% of the estimated world total of endemic species or plant species, and which have lost a lot of the native vegetation, they are accorded special priority. Now, in a sense, this sounds like they know what they're talking about. So many percentage and land area degradation and so on. At that time, satellite imagery was already available, so there is some intimation of what degradation and loss of vegetation is about. But no one can actually be sure of these percentages. Also, they are varying over time. And altogether, Conservation International, the agency that was trying to recommend aid for certain regions of the world to be prioritized, they identified about 36 hotspots. Yet another use of the term hotspot has been, if you like, made popular in Southeast Asia, at least by Professor Ashton and Professor John Beeman. And they have used the term to refer to special regions within Southeast Asia, or in fact, a single site which is extraordinarily rich in plant diversity, such as Mount Kinabalu, as adopted by Professor Beeman as a hotspot. Next. Now there are, I think the previous, is it the previous one? Okay. Yeah, yes. When we're talking about Borneo, it is in the context of Sundaland. And of course, there is the bigger region that encompasses these, called Malaysia, within the Southeast Asian region. Now, this whole region, which we can roughly refer to as Southeast Asia, is estimated to have about 50,000 plant species. Now, again, do we know what these people are talking about when they created these definitions? They have done their best to estimate, but as working botanists, including many of you here know, when you study your groups, sometimes there are boundless new species. This is not countable yet when they are not diagnosed and groups are not revised, okay? So yes, everyone is doing their best, but no one knows exactly how many, how much for the moment. Yeah. But still, we need these guidelines. And in Malaysia, it is estimated to have 45,000 plant species. I disagree. Having worked on some groups which have yielded extraordinary tallies of new species, I can imagine if these groups, these families containing these groups were further researched, there would be even more new discoveries. So let's take all these figures that are bandied about by different authors as estimates at best, okay? You can't do without them because in a way they are guidelines. Now, Borneo itself was estimated by Merrill when he started his first enumeration of Bornean plants at 9,000 species. Later, when he is older, much more experienced, and certainly wiser, he upped the tally to 15,000 species. So you can imagine, even an experienced botanist has to change the enumeration estimates. Next. The region is very special in terms of its past Ice Age connections. The whole of Sundaland at times were connected by land or near land, such as mangroves and swamps. Yeah, but it was what we call a contiguous region. This is the deep water region that nowadays we call Wallacea, after L. Russell Wallace, who was very active there, collecting the diversity, mainly animals, insects, and birds, and so on. He collected plants too, but Wallace doesn't appear to have named any plants. So he was a collector principally. And this is, of course, the Sahul Shelf, separated from the Sunda Shelf by a deep water region. Okay, apparently this region was never properly connected even in the past, historically. And this, of course, is New Guinea as we know it. And this is the present-day Australian region. So this is one unit versus this whole thing as a unit. Yeah, this, of course, is the major landmass that is somewhat the wet tropics, if you like. Okay, this only has patches of it. Okay, so and you find people nowadays comparing this unit with each of these subunits. Yep. So properly, you should compare this with the whole. You're right, and the story will look very different. Next. Now we have several ways of telling richness. We have said just now that you can't be totally sure. But what are the key indicators? The key indication for you have plot-based measures, and you can measure tree richness, and you can see this is the Sarawak Lambir plot, 1,200 species or thereabouts, versus the one in the Malay Peninsula at Pasir, 800 something species, and Panama on BCI or Barrow, Colorado Island is much poorer because it's a subtropical area. Okay, so when this was done, it set the standard for plot-based richness uh, estimates. And when this was done, which is the second plot after this, okay, people say, wow, you know, it's more than double the number of species. Okay, this is of course better. And then when this was done, it went through the ceiling. Okay, it's like among tropical forest plots, you cannot have a higher species number. But I think subsequent to that, people have looked at some South American plots and figures have gone up a little bit and so on, but nothing spectacularly so different as comparing Lambia with Paso or with BCI. Right? Next. And a different way of documenting and enumerating species richness is to revise groups and publish them as floras. The trees were emphasized because early in the history of Southeast Asia, trees and forestry were emphasized because the timber was considered a resource, a natural resource, but still a resource. And a third way is to compile the number of taxa previously documented, and this Professor Sin Ying from University Sarawak, Malaysia, or UNIMAS, she has now done this, and this was published in Webia in 2023, and is the latest checklist for Borneo. And even after this, it's rising slowly. And below here, actually, they have documented about 13,000 species. So as you might recall, Merrill, during his time, said that it was between 9,000 and 15,000 species for Borneo. But now, the latest enumeration is 13,000 something. I am sure it will continue to rise. So Merrill was not wrong when he became older and more experienced. Next. We mentioned the earlier emphasis on forestry and trees, and next, that itself has resulted in a great deal of documentation. This is not strange to us, but we've got to keep on emphasizing why these collections that represent real species in natural habitats, the collections are very important to maintain. They are part of the natural history archives of a region, and they are extremely important. They are our natural heritage also, not only the living plants, of which maybe there is more and more degradation, but especially the records for us to better understanding this richness. Next. Okay, so all kinds of things from animals and even timber. Timber was emphasized greatly in the past, much less so now. Next, yeah. Okay, and every time you make a record of something interesting, okay, it actually is an addition, enhancing the value of this biodiversity. Next. Now, what are the major features of plant biodiversity that we may be able to identify. Firstly, as we all generally understand, the species richness is intense. It's extremely, extremely rich, okay? Secondly, the rates of endemism are very high. And endemic taxon is one that is restricted to some locality. Of course, many people would ask then, but everything is restricted to planet Earth. Now, we don't use this specialized term like this. We use the term endemic or endemism for more restricted areas. Okay. Thirdly, there are long series of congeners found in these very rich sites. A congener is a member of the same genus, or members of the same genus are referred to as congeners. So when you have long series of congeners, you have many, many, many different species belonging to that particular genus. Now, those of you who have wandered in the forests of Sundaland may remember when you walk through the forest, the lowland forest in particular, you find many, many species of Diospyros, many species of ficus, many species of Canema in the Myristicaceae, for example. Okay, when you go down to the herbs, which are not so well dispersed sometimes, you can find series of congeners, all right? Satandra, for example, okay? So that is a feature of our area's rainforests. And most species are rare. What is rarity? When you have a forest plot, you go in, you mark a plot of a certain area, and you enumerate all the species of a certain size, you will find that the number of species versus the frequency or the density of each species, for example, they will always have this reverse J curve. What does this curve represent? It means that the common species, meaning species with a high frequency, are only very few in number. Whereas those which with a decreased density, in other words, they are more difficult to find, and therefore they are rare, and this represents a lot of species. So, in other words, most rainforest species are rare. Okay, and that's a very important thing to remember. Also, the unique groupings of species. For example, you can have limestone, the limestone flora, and they have their own special species as well, their own special groups. And you can have mangrove assemblages and so on and so forth. Okay? And these are special sites. Why is that important? Because if you have one generalized adaptive environment, like a lowland rainforest area that you can imagine, you can only have one measure of diversity. But if you have unique assemblages, and each have unique diversity measures, you add them together, the whole is bigger than the components, okay? So the more varied the assemblages, adds to the overall species diversity. Now here, in this picture, are 11 shoria species in a lowland forest patch in Brunei. We collected this on one morning, walking through the forest, and there's shoria after shoria after shoria, okay? And this is an example of a congeneric, right? So in summary, I think these 5 characteristics are very important, not only for scientists to gather their thoughts on how diversity works, but also for us to introduce to students and a general readership so that they can break down all these special characteristics and they can put together in their minds how much is being lost if you do a certain action on the natural habitats. Next. Now here, I couldn't resist putting this in. It's not Dipterocarp, but this is Anisophilia, something that nowadays belongs to the Anisophiliaceae, or is it still in the Rhizosphoraceae? I think it's Anisophiliaceae, okay? There are changes in classification and arguments for each classification, but the general characteristics of biodiversity are there, right? And you can see different species of this genus. This is another congeneric series. Next. Now, what then brings about this richness? We have seen that we have some means of estimating richness and diversity. We have seen how different endeavors, such as writing floras, making enumerations, and doing plot studies, contribute to our understanding of richness. But when you examine richness itself, it behoves us to ask what controls this diversity, which is, of course, alpha diversity, okay? You can transpose this problem or question into another statement. How can so large a number of species occur together or coexist at small spatial scales? What is it that allows so many species to thrive together at a site or a small area? Next. Now, for thinking along these lines, we can return to the Gaussian principle that given a number of species in one area, and a number of species in one area means they are all exploiting the resources, whether it's nutrients in the soil, or water regime, or light intensities, and so on. So we can ask the question that when all these species are competing for resources, some should be losers, some should be winners in a way. So eventually, there will be one species left because that species will knock out the competitors, okay? So fundamental Gaussian principle looks at competition that way, right? So when you have competition, we can expect that alpha diversity will be reduced okay, unless coexistence or co-occurrence or alpha diversity is promoted by delaying competition or preventing competition among species. And yes, competitive exclusion can be achieved, all this is theoretical, theoretically by species being equivalent. They are so similar in their resource exploitation that they don't knock out one another, and most of the species can continue to enjoy exploiting the resources in that way. So competitive exclusion or reduction of alpha diversity can be countered by ecologically equivalent species able to coexist over the longer term. So next, alternatively, the species are able to partition the resources present. In other words, the water use may be different, their light utilization may differ in some way, and that's why they can stay on the site, because from one spot to the next in the rainforest, you can find variation, okay? So, in other words, competitive exclusion can be circumvented by not just ecologically equivalent species, but by resource partitioning between species. Now, quite some time ago, Priyanka had already illustrated how resource gradients and niche differentiation may occur. I think now we can move that up here. We can move the panel up here. Wonderful, yeah, all right. Now, when you have a number of species, they are utilizing one resource that can be referred to as the first niche dimension. And you can see that the different species, A, B, C, D, etc., they can utilize different parts of that particular niche dimension. And if you have a second niche dimension, you can also find the same species utilizing that second niche dimension in different ways. Taken together, the overlap usually allows all the species to coexist, because as long as they differ in one niche dimension, there is already some difference in resource partitioning. Okay, so next. This is shown in a more realistic way by Stuart Davis's PhD work on how macarangas do it. It's mainly in the Lambia forest. Okay, the Lambia plot is 52 hectares, and you can see that he has defined 4 principal soil texture classes, and along towards the left, 1 and 2 is clay rich, and towards the end, towards 4 here is sand rich. Okay, And so in the 52-hectare plot, okay, there are 1,300 trees that were considered altogether. So N is 1,300. And this is the percentage that of each category that occurs. This is roughly the profile in Lampir. Then the different species, the percentages that occur are the following, okay? And the next slide. This is just another graphic representation, but it talks about highlight versus low light. In other words, the crown illumination index, a measure of it is provided, and a percentage of trees of each of the at each of those regimes. Yeah, you can see some are able to exploit greater light intensities, and others thrive in lower light intensities. Next. So when you have a 3D distribution, okay, the crown illumination, the maximum tree height, and the extent occurring on sand-rich soils, you can see how the niches are partitioned, okay? And that allows the segregation of different species adaptation ability. Yeah. Now, the main hypothesis explaining species coexistence among tropical forest plants, as we have referred to earlier, were in hot debate at the turn of the century. Okay, one of the best is Joe Wright's essay in Ecologia. This is a very good elucidation. I think I had to read it 3 or 4 times, okay, when I first encountered the article. But when you finally understand what is being talked about, it's like, you know, nirvana, you know, it's really very wonderful. Now, next. My research group's interests have included the Gentianaceae and Rubiaceae, which both fall into the Gentianales. And we started this before the advent of molecular phylogenetics. And so we have largely used conventional methods of taxonomy to build up classifications. And we emphasize whole plant biology as well, not just twigs and leaves. So the morphology, especially details of flowers and fruits, and later plant architecture were emphasized in our studies, right? The important thing is the formal classification. This is one of the most classic Phagria species. In Flora Malaysiana, this was not called Imperialis, I think. Oh, it was called Imperialis. Sorry, it was called Imperialis. Yeah, but look at the size of that one flower. All right, and we concluded our studies at each phase by publishing in a series called Studies in Malaysian Gentianaceae. And the key thing was to look at the larger defined Foguera and ask whether it is a complex genus with different subgenera, etc., or is it several genera lumped together? And at that time, we crossed over into molecular phylogenetic analysis, and we could elucidate the group quite satisfactorily. Next. Here is a herbarium studies, lab studies, in a small room. Actually, the former superintendent of the University Gardens office, right? After he retired, we converted it into a mini lab, and all the DNA extraction was done there. And this is the diversity of the flowers of the different groups. Next. Plant architecture was used. A simple way to appreciate differences in whole plant structure or plant architecture is to compare, for example, what eventually became Utania. Okay, look at the stem, it's very straight and is continuously growing. The gaps between the branches, which means the gaps between the former leaf nodes, is roughly constant. Okay, and along the branches, the leaves are disticus. They are opposite, but they are all held this way, okay, in 2 rows. You can be alternate in 2 rows, or you can be opposite in 2 rows, okay? And we call this distici or disticus arrangement. Now, in these 2 other genera, you can see that the branch production is interrupted. There's a clear gap here, a zone of branching, and then a clear gap before the next tier occurs, right? So this is interrupted growth or episodic growth. Same here, right? And that's why you have layers, and you will have layers there too. But these 2 will differ in other characteristics. Next. Now, this is another 2 species of Utania, disticus leaves, okay, continuous growth of the stem, okay, and this one is a special species from Borneo. The branches become so long that they become heavy, and sometimes they depress the whole plant. And because the branches are hanging at the distal portion, the leaf orientation changes, okay? So when you hold it upright, you see that the leaves here are the right way up, and the leaves here are upside down, okay? A feature that the local Malay people refer to as balik sumpah. That means it cannot curse, so because then you become upside down, you know. So next. And here is the phylogeny we eventually obtained. These are the different groups with different morphological characteristics, and they are well-supported groups, okay? So this whole thing is one well-supported clade. This thing is another one. This is the disticus leaf group, okay? And this one is the typical tambusu tree, and this one is a different clade again. And these 3 clades are from South America. Yes, and you can see that the clade structure is similar, right? So we are satisfied with this. to represent the current consideration for genera within the former Phrygia complex. Next. Also, of course, those processes are not the only processes that shape species diversity. We were fortunate enough to be able to understand a little bit about polyploidy processes in some of the groups we examined. Next. And when the evolution is complex because certain genes define groups in ways different from certain other genes, then we possibly have what is called reticulate evolution. And so we were interested in recognizing subtribes among Southeast Asian wood-bees, which for a long time was never really investigated. And this is a long-term project that eventually came to involve Professor Ellie as well. And next. Basically, amongst the several of us, the old bambusa has been slowly broken up, right? And leaving bambusa to be more strictly defined, okay? And there are other groups like that in Southeast Asia, but this is a so very possible to demonstrate supergroup. The bambusa has been like a kind of tong sampa, where people put different hexa in, okay? And they all call it bambusa, right? Next. Okay. Even Dinocloa, okay, has been somehow mixed up with bambusa at one time, okay? But we all know that it is a twining bamboo, very special. And I love to demonstrate this to visitors to the botanic gardens in the university where I worked, because I thought this was out of this world, you know. And there are other climbing or clambering genera of bamboos as well. Very important, of course, is dissection, because the flowers of grasses and also of bamboos are tiny and require great patience and skill in order to decipher the key characteristics. And so this would be a morphological basis, mostly. There are other morphological characters that can help in a first classification, such as branching structure of the culms. Then you add on to it molecular phylogenetic analysis, you may actually find a far more satisfactory classification than previously. We also use anatomy, but you need certain other techniques again to study that. Okay, next. Okay, there have been 4 very interesting indications that helped the understanding of reticulate evolution in bamboos. Firstly, the Chinese actually artificially hybridized bamboos. And this was quite crazy. Nobody paid much attention. It was mentioned in a small local publication. And then an Australian horticulturist, Len Muller, went to Bali and imported a clump of Gigantochlora ridleyi to his Australian farm. Okay, and this is very interesting because one clump. So when that clump flowered and produced seeds, it was from a selfing, right? And two Indian colleagues of ours demonstrated why Bambusa vulgaris is sterile and doesn't produce seed. Okay, a very careful work. And lastly, our discovery of natural populations of what we could identify morphologically as hybrids while in Peninsular Malaysia, and we performed some phylogenetic work on them. Next. Now, hybrid swarms in bamboos, which means two different allelic populations hybridizing. Their products would, in a sense, represent a bewildering diversity. And that was first suggested by Professor Holton in 1966. Okay, and he went on to suggest that many bamboos cultivated in places like Java are not natural species, but they could have been introduced from further north in Southeast Asia, such as in Myanmar, where the diversity of bamboos, such as Gigantochlora bamboos, practically goes crazy, and that when these hybridize, the products are a diversity of morphological types, and some of these types, not all, because from hybridization you get the bewildering array of progeny. Some of them are introduced when people populated the Indonesian islands. And there are a lot of suppositions in this suggestion, which we can't really conduct simple experiments to verify today. Yeah. So, and then of course, the Myanmar situation precludes easy ways of collecting in that country. It demands very careful field work, very careful collection and then analysis of characters as well as genes. Next. Yeah. Now, to understand this bewildering array from hybridization, we can refer to Genetics 101, and here is a dominant allelic profile, and this is recessive composition. So these are the parents. If they mate, the gametes are heterozygotic, yeah. And then the F1 from this, if they self, you get all these allelic types, and the combinations, the different combinations gives you this panel of diverse allelic compositions. Yeah. And so this is a simple way of demonstrating this. Now, then we talked about our own molecular analysis, which shows this is a chloroplast phylogeny, and this is a nuclear phylogeny, and they don't match. So something is amiss. They do not match. Okay, those different organelles are transmitted in along different pathways. Okay, and still we have recognizable species morphologically, but then you wonder what's going on, and this has confused botanists in the past. People have suggested that the principal genera of the Bambusae or Bambusinae, Bambusa B, Dendrocalamus D, and Giganticolor G, which here forms the BDG complex for us, should not be considered different genera, but they are all the same thing, all right? And so, as we achieve different levels of understanding with each special analytical tool being possible to apply to this kind of diversity, we find that our understanding of this diversity and eventually leading to an understanding of a perhaps plausible way of classifying the whole group, you find this possibility becoming available. Science is a process of building layer upon layer of special understanding, and this is enabled by technology and different perspectives available at each time. Yeah. So all these difficult to classify bamboos that mostly do not produce flowers, or if they do not produce viable seed, have been called ancient enduring clones. They are not representative of a full species. This term was coined by Muller. So these are long-standing clones maintained by human communities, probably for their usefulness. Right? AECs are difficult to conserve. South and East Asia has a large number, in particular Indonesia. And this is a map to show the central position of Borneo, slightly distorted. It is also the principal landmass of the Sundaland region. Next. Borneo itself, when we focus on it, is a landmass with a huge diversity of geology. The whites are mostly sedimentaries. Okay, many of the others are igneous or volcanic rock types. Remember, the components add up to give a bigger total. All right, but even the sedimentaries, as represented here with Sarawak, there are some basalts and igneous rocks, particularly in southwest Sarawak, which is this region, which is the region Phuket, who's present here, is focusing with at least 2 genera to see how the variants are distributed among the different rock types and terrain types. Yeah. And you can see older sandstones and younger sandstones and things like that. Yeah. And Ashton focused on the importance of the Lupa area. This is a major geological fault. When you look at the geological evidence, these are just river valleys. Okay, all the other main river valleys are not separating Diprocarp species to the west and to the east as this one. This one is a major division boundary. And another colleague of mine, Luis Neo, mapped different species of Sauragias from a revision I did. And she mapped it according to the different, in this case, vegetation types and disturbance. And we also did a profile for geological types and also contours. And it's turning out a lot of very interesting conservation insights. Yeah? So you can see that here is overcrowded with species diversity. But we cannot say that the species diversity is low in a generalized area too. So they all have their own diversity profiles. And deforestation was taken from Gavo in 2016. Yeah. So, yeah. And we also studied the number of endemic genera published over 20 years. And of course, as you can expect, the longer that our understanding contributes, the more documentation there will be of endemic genera. Next. Here are some of the endemic genera. This is Borneo dendron, which is peculiar in having whorls of tree leaves and red sap in the bark. Yeah. And this is J.J. Woodia, a tiny orchid. And this is Schumanziella from the Octanaceae. This is Upuna from the Diprocarpaceae. And this is Berbigia, which until a few years ago was endemic. But then Berbigia was subsequently recorded from the southern Philippines. Yeah. So it is a near endemic, not truly an endemic anymore. Again, testament to how much we can understand of diversity across our landscapes and how much we document it. If you don't document something, that something doesn't exist. Yeah. Next. These are just biogeographic areas. And as we progress in our ability to analyze, new areas have emerged for Kalimantan. So this is the Maratus Mountains area, and this is the Sangkulirang area, and this area is somewhere between West and Central Kalimantan, but the lakes region, I think somewhere here, where you are going for an expedition, is a very interesting but under-documented place. And I would imagine that you will get tons of fantastic results from this expedition. So it is a very well identified region. Yeah. It may not appear here in this analysis because it's under-documented. Next. Yeah. Brian was talking about degradation and reduction of forest areas among Sarawak, Sabah, and Brunei. Didn't include Kalimantan, but it was clear that in Brunei, the deforestation and degradation was much less than Sabah and Sarawak here. You all would know from seeing the news and all that logging was quite serious over many, many decades in Sabah and Sarawak. Next. This was a projection in 2005, I think. Yes. So this is not based on reality, but it's a projection as things get more and more severe, so to speak. Now, again, we, as botanists and biologists, we can understand why this happens when you log a forest, okay? And this shows that when you lower the canopy level, because the conditions favor fast-growing, weedy type species, and you can tell from the texture of the ground that one kind of weedy species has come in, replacing the former high diversity ecosystem. And when you lower the canopy, the amount of living space is diminished. So there's very little to partition when you have a diminished space. Yeah, it's like if you lower this ceiling, you can only have very few activities in that space left. Yeah. This is a fire-ravaged plains in Sabah during dry weather in 1915, and I was there in the 1990s, and a lot of this grassland has not really been recolonized by trees. Yeah, so fire is very damaging. It's still occurring. And this is still occurring. This is actually quite small, but they're still taking it. Yeah, they used to take really elephantine logs out. Yeah, next. And this is what happens to the environment if you take too much of the vegetation out, and then there's a lot of runoff, and the rivers turn this color. Yeah, and these people are from a nearby longhouse, and so this is in the middle of Sarawak. I'm sure some of you are used to seeing things like that during your fieldwork. Next. This is destruction of peat swamp. Next. Okay, and this, of course, emphasizes oil palm as a golden crop. But when you get such a big area of golden crop, you have nothing left. Okay, just golden crop. Next. And so after fires and after land modification, especially that followed by plantation of fast-growing species, you can have weediness increasing with just a very few species. Yeah. Next. And in Kuala Lumpur, we were able to make use of a generous offer by this man who has now passed on. He took up a hobby, going to the forest and gathering all kinds of seeds and fruits. And one day he came to the university and said, "Can you please identify these for me?" And we said to him, well, can we keep your fruit and seed specimens? Try and collect a bit of leafy twigs as well together. And we identified for him. And he was so happy. He gave us lorry loads of well-grown species. He gave the botanic gardens so that we can plant them. And he sent the lorry loads free of charge to us. Next. You see, these are postgrad students and staff helping to unload as well as to document the trees we received from this man. Yeah. So you see, the species are different sorts of species, but in an artificial environment, instead of growing golden crop, you can put all these together and a lot of them will live. So it's a very exciting possibility for revegetation. But someone must do the hard work of getting the species and providing them care and, until they can grow. You can actually plant this thing, but it's hard work to dig the holes and carry the plants there. Yeah. Next. And at the University of Malaya's developing botanical garden, we emphasize public education, particularly for younger people. Next. And we have exhibitions to guide them to understand tropical rainforests and so on. Next. Our labels are informative, and you can see Malaya has received its share of forest reduction, just like Sumatra. Next. And extinction actually begins with fragmentation. When an ecosystem or a habitat is broken into parts, that is the beginning. You see, this is so badly locked over that only some slightly better habitats cling on to the valleys and so on. And you can see in Kuala Lumpur, leaving little patches like that. Yeah. And this is in Barakas. In Brunei also has this kind of thing. So this is a housing area, and they keep this, and the age effect will slowly reduce. The weeds will come in and all that. The big trees will, of course, grow old as nobody to mate with, and they die a very sad death. Next. So population pressure, logging, and catastrophic events like widespread fires are very important in today's world in Southeast Asia. One will result in schemes that displace humans to less used regions, and they will bring that changing environment to those outer areas, like the Trans-Migrasi. Yeah. Logging will eventually lead to plantation agriculture, or other development. It is again controlled at the center. The center means the center of administration. The periphery means the outer rural areas. Yeah. So landscape transformation will occur. Yeah. And these fires will actually just intensify environmental degradation. Next. And just to show fragmentation in the Kuala Lumpur region. Right, next. And Washitani has outlined the flow of processes which are caused primarily through habitat fragmentation, okay? Reduction in population sizes, loss of pollinators, isolation of trees, and failure in setting seed, inbreeding, etc., right? So this is what he called a vortex for extinction for flowering plant population. Next. And this would be our last slide for today. We don't want to end up with landscapes like that. It's totally very difficult to deal with. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. We can have questions for those people who are still here and not yet run away.
Yeah, thank you, Kunmeng, for the presentation. It was a comprehensive, intensive, and it stretches around many dimensions from the introduction about the general overview about Borneo, and then you're honing into the details, like from bamboo and from Fagraya, and it ended up nicely with the conservation and the current status of the vegetation in Borneo. Thank you very much. So this is our moment. This is the moment for Q&A for all the audience, either in this room or elsewhere online. And one thing I forgot to address in the beginning, I apologize for this, that Kunmeng is also a professor from University of Malaya. So let's use this perfect moment to just tap his knowledge, to expand our horizon. And I have seen that there are like many questions in the chat, but before that, I'd like to invite people in this room, if any of you guys have any questions or anything, just please. Not for now? Okay, now we are going to the chat box. Okay.
Oh, I didn't bring it along. Oh, I left it in the room, I think. Yeah, it's okay.
Kunmeng, hang on a moment, please. Kenapa? Okay.
Yes.
So we have questions here. Would you like to read it yourself, or would you like me to read it out loud for you? Hang on.
How about people here?
Well, it's still, well, we're still thinking, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we still we have questions from Nurfianto Giar Pangindung.
Do you want to read it out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which one fits you the best?
Up to you. Yeah.
Okay. Question to Dr. Wong. What are the implications of the competitive exclusion theory in efforts to conserve endangered plants and its application in plant breeding? Given that Borneo tropical rainforest biodiversity and tropical peatland ecosystem are currently threatened by the expansion of oil palm monoculture, and to tackle it, researchers today are studying oil palm agroforestry.
The two are not
basically
linked.
Competitive exclusion, the implication of it.
There are two parts there, right?
Yeah.
the two parts there, but it seems the second part is a condition for considering the first part. I'm not sure about that. First of all, we can maybe make a small comment on implications of the competitive exclusion theory in efforts to conserve endangered plants. These considerations are necessarily academic, and they are not evolved for the purpose of conservation. It's just that if you understand how things come about and so on, then it increases the awareness that the whole system is very important, and you cannot at will just clear a lot of it and leave small patches. Competitive exclusion theory works in a good forest system. We are not talking about small remnant patches. So I think one is theory and the other one is worry. Yeah. And the oil palm bit.
Yeah, I think that's
there are many approaches to that.
Yeah, and Nurfianto, if you are around right now, you are welcome to put the mic on and say it out loud. Well, in the meantime, we are going to the second question. I have question. How to convince the government if we take the forest excessively will damage the ecosystem and endemic flora and fauna. Like the interview of Greenpeace and one of the mass organizations in Indonesia that is currently viral.
I think it is useful to emphasize that we shouldn't just publish our scientific results in scientific journals and forget to popularize the major understanding from these studies in the way of general books, simplified books, talks and lectures, and even to get administrators on our side in presenting the importance of science as well as conservation. And starting with simple things, even if you have a small patch of forest, make an interesting event out of protecting that forest. I have seen many examples from Indonesia already. Many involve NGOs, but it's not quite enough, I think. Many people hide away from this because it doesn't bring them academic points, and so they don't want to get involved in it because you have to spend time. So another way to do this is to have a dedicated team in every important department like BRIN to do this PR work and to get funding, to talk to big sponsors, to involve the administrators, to involve certain scientists whose work they do. So, but then the tendency for organizations is to employ junior people and put them in charge of this PR work. That will not do. You have your PhDs and highly qualified people doing research that sometimes nobody can understand or nobody sees clearly. And then you have very junior people trying to go out there and protect the world. It doesn't work like that. You've got to have also senior people supported by junior people who are interested in that. Yeah. Uh, and of course, the pay structure should not be less than the scientific structure. Yeah. If you treat that thing as cheap and unimportant, it will give you cheap and unimportant results. So that is one recommendation I can make. Then the second one, can we use a certain area and we consider the area as a representative of the area of Kalimantan? I think Kalimantan is a large and diverse region. And at this moment, our understanding of it is quite rudimentary and quite general. At first glance, it doesn't appear to be as rich as the Sabah Sarawak region, which is mostly referred to as making up the Northwest Borneo eco-region. But as we have tried to suggest, interesting areas are coming up to be recognized from Kalimantan. So, but yet, Danau Sentarum is not yet fully recognizable through this analysis. Yeah. So it's important to go in and document, and then not just document and again go back to your own work. You must contribute to understanding the material. Yeah. You know, and then you must make all these points. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I like your point, Kunmeng, because you're touching ground with this issue. Science communication is very important. So we are scientists, but our mission is not only publishing papers in highly recognized journals, but we also have obligations to basically popularize science, make it acceptable for lay people. Yeah, but unfortunately, at this moment, the policy is not really on our side, because we are required to deal with high impact journals, and since you mentioned Centarum, yeah, that's one of the funny thing, because Centarum is one of Ramsar sites, and it's recognized for migratory birds. But I'm not sure whether we have comprehensive information on the vegetation. And later, when we, this week and like for the next 3 weeks, we'll be in Centarum to document the biodiversity, plants, animals, as well as microorganisms. So yeah, we also hope to gain something to generate more data for biodiversity, and yeah, and that on. Hopefully we can fulfill more information on Borneo, because when I look at information on Borneo, for example, Sabah and Sarawak has 3 flora. That's magnificent, like different series with a lot of species and with a lot of families and species. And Brunei, they have flora of Brunei. But from the Kalimantan, the Indonesian Borneo side, we only have patches, we only have piecemeals of information, like mantle of Dipterocarps, secondary plants of certain area. We don't have a comprehensive views on the vegetations. I'm not sure from the animal sides, because I'm a botanist, but yeah, that's one of the impediments of the taxonomic impediments we have to overcome. Yeah.
In Sabah, as plant revisions continue, we discover quite a few interesting records of new species from ultramafic islands. And so even books have been written about the ultramafic geology and how special it is to biodiversity. Of course, ultramafic areas are also impacted by so-called plantation and development, but the forest department in Sabah has actually engaged both forestry companies and oil palm growing companies in treating these ultramafic sites as special conservation areas, and it fulfills their conservation accountability too. But when it comes to trying to review the plant life of ultramafic areas, there's very little that is collected about the Marathus Mountains area, that should be very interesting.
Yeah.
It should be very interesting.
Yeah, and it fits with one of your points in the special assemblage.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay, we still have questions here, and right now it's 3:22. We have time until 4 p.m. today, so we still have plenty of time. From Lana Maulana, question to Dr. Wang: is 50-hectare plot minimum size for describing plant diversity in tropical area is enough? And how about your personal opinion of the state of the art of deforestation, especially by mining and biodiversity in tropical country? And what are your advices for botany students in Indonesia? Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of questions. Okay, let's deal one by one. Is 50-hectare plot minimum size is enough?
A lot of statistics are being used in analyzing plant populations recorded in such sites in order to derive general understanding, especially when these 50-hectare plots are recensus every few years. And so you get an idea of the dynamics of tree growth and population development, and gives a picture of change over a period of time. These are permanent plots. 50 hectares was, I think, the understanding that it provides sufficient interpretation through the statistical methods. Okay, it is not for describing plant diversity per se. It's simply a statistical method. Is very big. You take weeks or even months to finish one census. So it's very expensive.
Yes. So Lana, it's very expensive, and I know you asked this because you are conducting a lot of field work. So let's get back to the, hang on. What am I doing? Oops, sorry about that. Personal opinion about state of the art of deforestation and biodiversity. That's a lot. But that's personal opinion. Oops, sorry.
Sorry?
Your personal opinion about state of the art of deforestation.
Where is this?
This one.
Or how about your personal opinion about the state of the art of deforestation, especially mining and biodiversity in tropical country? It's rather difficult to conduct mining where you won't damage anything. There is no personal opinion on the state of the art of deforestation. Everyone can see what deforestation does. But people must realize that sometimes it's better that we summarize the advantages versus the disadvantages for a particular set of circumstances. For example, sometimes areas are so beautifully attractive as tourism areas, and therefore we wish to keep these areas in perpetuity. It enhances the prestige of a country to have these fantastic spots in nature, and that attracts people to want to come see it, you see. The moment you do something that is counter to this beauty, and especially if people complain, communities complain too much, you will have a controversy, and I think this decreases the value of a country's worth for environmental and tourism purposes. So also in tourism, the components add up to give you a bigger whole. So you destroy the components, the whole appeal for tourism will go into decline. Same thing.
Same thing.
So I can't say much because I haven't done a survey on this thing.
Makes sense.
I hope that is the reasonable response.
And any advice for students of botany?
Oh, work hard.
So Lana, you hear that? Work hard, even harder. No sleeping, no break at all, no Sunday, no Saturday, just work hard.
If you didn't sleep during the 1.5 hours just now, you got a good chance.
Okay, you get the advice from the expert. It's up to you, Lana. Okay, let's move on to the next question. My name is Dharma. Based on what I've read, the Wallace line separates the transitional flora and fauna from Australia, while the Weber line separates the Asian flora and fauna from the transitional flora. Yes, the Wallace line was mentioned earlier in the earlier a new treasure. Is the Wallace line that was mentioned earlier a new treasure? I'm not entirely sure how to.
I'm not quite sure how to interpret this comment either.
Okay. Darmawan, if you are around and online, you are welcome to raise your hand, and we'll give you a chance to speak to Kunmeng directly. Okay, the next one is Rifaldi. Can you share this material presentation to all joining Zoom? Yes, we will share it because we have our team here. Now, for the next question from Muhammad Faisal, Undip. How to integrate various elements into a single component of a botanical garden? That's interesting. Do you have any thoughts about this?
Oh, it really depends on how big your area is, what you have already got on that site, and your budget. If you have a good budgetary support, the world is at your disposal, you know. But if you have no money, it's very, very difficult.
Okay, it's all about the money. So collect money and
things cost money. So apply for grants.
Yes, grants. Next one, I have a specific question concerning mangrove botanical gardens. Despite being the country with the largest mangrove coverage in the world, Indonesia currently has only one mangrove botanical garden. What is your view of the about the current state of mangrove flora?
First of all, does the person have a mangrove botanical garden already?
Again, Muhammad Faisal, if you're around, feel free to raise your hand and clarify your questions. actually,
Meanwhile, a few remarks can be made. The mangrove ecosystem is the poorest amongst all the vegetation types, and it is also a phasic ecosystem. There are zones in the mangrove where the tidal conditions favor a particular community or very few species, and that environment does not immediately cater to a wide diversity of plants. And within a reasonable time, you can plan your mangrove park to pass through these different phases or communities to show the diversity in the mangroves, but there ain't very much of plants you can introduce in the way of a botanic gardens. I don't think a mangrove site can be reasonably shaped into a botanic gardens. It can be shaped into a mangrove park. It has its own appeal, but the possibilities are very limited. So still, it can be interesting to visitors. So it's different from the kind of botanical garden that we are talking about, which is smaller or as huge as the Kebun Raya, Indonesia. That is spectacularly developed. Yeah. So the possibilities are different, but we cannot be totally negative about using mangroves for some kind of education and display. It's, I think, my response.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And now the next question is from Ihsan, a graduate student from Biology, University of Pajajaran. What is the strategic measure can be implemented to safeguard Borneo's endemic flora from extinction? And how to involve local indigenous community to enhance the conservation effort? Oh, this question is about the involvement of local indigenous community for the conservation. Do you have any thoughts or experience about this?
As I briefly alluded to, one needs to know where these endemic taxa occur, and then one needs to know the extent of the natural habitat, and one also needs to know the extent of disturbance over the landscape, and you have to have a GIS type facility to overlay the distributions, the known distributions, against the landscape sceneries or scenes, yeah, as they call them in GIS. And also, you got to conduct ground checks to go to those places that you think the taxa are endangered, and actually survey and have an assessment, and then to see whether there's anything you can do about it, or it's best abandoned for those sites. You can't save every population, but you want to save as much as you can. But that work must be done first. You cannot go around shouting with placards. That work must be done. And after that work is done, the resource must be sold to private sector, must be sold to administrators in the public domain, must be sold to the communities. Yeah. So selling is very important.
And basically involvement of different stakeholders.
Yes.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier here. Okay, about the indigenous community, would you like to say something about this? Or, well, they are already included in the involvement with multiple stakeholders.
The case in bamboo also occur in ferns, yes.
Okay.
Both are also grow by, yes. Who is this person asking this question? Oh,
this is from Professor Dedi.
Prof. Dedi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much involved in sorry.
I was thinking
so hybridization.
Very sharp comment.
The question is, hybridization and polyploidization are very much involved in reticulate evolution. The case in bamboo also occur in ferns. Both are also grown by vegetative reproduction. Is there an example in 3 species?
There are trees where very closely related morphological forms appear to occur, and they're very difficult to classify as distinct or as varieties or as forms. And it has been suggested that these very closely resembling forms form a larger interbreeding community. And the name for this is well, yes, it simply means a potentially interbreeding community of closely resembling forms. Yeah, and this occurs in particularly big genera. Syzygium is one where this could happen. It is possible. There are other possibilities too. Yeah, I think even in the Rubiaceae, in a complex like Timonius, a number of species can be recognized as belonging to an alliance. They have similar features and they differ in small ways.
I see.
And we don't know what's happening without reproductive information being documented.
Yeah.
That term will come to me.
It's fine. And if we look at through deep time, actually angiosperms had experienced multiple events of whole genome duplication. And I think this also applies in the polyploidization, because those whole genome duplication appear again and again across the evolution of angiosperms. So I think that's not super common, but it happened, and it basically provide them as a way to escape from extinction, because with polyploidization they have like more than the double number set of chromosomes, so they have extra alleles to survive and to basically to adapt to the new environment post several big extinctions. Yeah, and right now we have Norvianto Giar Panindung. Thank you for returning back. This is the person who previously asked about the competitive exclusion theory, and here he provides us the more elaborative narrative. Okay, what I mean of competitive exclusion theory is which is many species can be considered in small species. Well, I think this statement is mixing two different things. One is the plantation and the other one is biodiversity. Yeah. So in Kunmeng presentation beforehand, I explicitly mentioned about only for the biodiversity, not only, and not dealing with competitive exclusion in terms of the plantation. Okay, the next one is from Yessi. Thank you for sharing the PDF. So it's up and running. It's for you guys. Okay, and well, this one is, oh, another information from Dwi Satyanti, KRB. This is the person from Kebun Raya Bogor. And now oh, that's nice. Now Kebun Raya Mangrove Surabaya has approximately 34 hectares.
The term is syngamion. Syngamion.
Okay.
Syngameon. A grouping of closely related forms that could potentially interbreed.
Syngamion. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's nice. Thank you for the Syngamion and Kebun Raya Surabaya 34 hektar under Dinas Ketahanan Pangan and Pertanian Kota Surabaya. Thank you. And let's keep going down. From BMO, it will be difficult or is it just if it just adjusted some endemic flora? Is it will be difficult if it just adjusted some endemic flora, but the environment factor in the area not compatible to other flora, and if it compatible. Oh, I think. Do you get the point of this one? This question. BMO is BMO. If you're around, correct me if I somehow get it wrong.
Upper one.
Yeah. So basically, you are suggesting that if endemic flora is constrained by its environmental factor, which somehow does not apply to, hang on. Endemic flora is present because it fits with the certain environmental factor, which is not really compatible with other flora. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm not making any suggestion like this. You can potentially study the conservation profile of anything you think is worthwhile studying. It doesn't have to be endemic, but you can use the endemic flora as a special model.
Oh, special,
Yeah.
okay, like a proxy, okay. Yeah, but to addressing this one, I believe he's asking something else. It's not that the endemic flora, because it's not compatible with other flora, but it will be more diverse area. So you are asking that if it's not endemic, so it's more compatible with different thing. Yeah, I don't know. We don't have such.
I think we can skip the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you okay giving your email to Aziza?
You can find it easily in papers. Yeah.
You can find his email easily.
Yeah.
Aziza, yeah, and thank you for asking. Yeah, find it in Google. Yeah. Okay, Asi Parwita Dewi. Oh, that's a lot. Asi, are you online now? If you're online now, just talk.
Yes, I'm here, Alex.
Is Asi online?
Hello.
Okay. Hang on. Can we hear her voice? Hang on, Asi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's try. No voice? Okay, well, in that case, we have to deal with the question.
Hello.
About some areas with high probability of endemic species can be found from early taxonomic research. Do you have any suggestion about how to learn plant species? Oh, and maybe identify.
Hello, can you hear me, Alex?
How to Asi, could you hear me now? Could
Yes,
you
I
speak?
can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Hello.
Go ahead, shoot it out.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wong, my name is Asih. Actually, I am what we can say that I am junior researcher in taxonomy, maybe because I just learned about taxonomy in the past 6 years only. So I still have to learn more about how to study in taxonomy. And actually, I plan to study about Lauraceae family in Borneo, but it's just because I come from Borneo, come from West Kalimantan, so that's why I think this presentation is really give me a very good information about the flora in Kalimantan. Maybe it's just I just need some suggestion from you about how to in generally how to look about plant about the species about the plant species in sorry sebentar sebentar sorry agak pelan ya. Wah. Yeah, maybe how to study about the plant, especially tree plants in Borneo, like in Lauraceae. Maybe you have some experience about studying Lauraceae or any kind of tree species besides Lauraceae, maybe. I mean, like, what is the difference from Borneo tree species with the Sumatra or another mainland in based on your experience maybe. And for the second question is about the endemicity. Maybe maybe for me, yeah, I still difficult to understanding how can I recognize this species is kind of endemic or not. Is that can we determine this species as the endemic species based on the morphological characters, or only we should have to see the distribution because maybe they has a limited distribution area, like specific habitat in split swamp forest, or maybe in the hill slope or anything. Maybe you can share it with
Okay, thank you,
us.
Asi.
Thank
We
you.
get your points. Actually, there are two questions. One, how to learn plant species, especially tree. Because to put it in the context, she is still new and she's trying to apply for school, and she's learning taxonomy.
What's the first question?
How to learn plant species, I think, like identification or describing the.
She's still in school.
She's applying for school.
Applying for university?
Applying, yes, for university.
Well, you have to join the university first and
Okay, okay, that's wonderful. Okay, Asi, so we are waiting to see your application goes through. Okay,
and learn from your professor.
yeah. And the second one, how to identify a species is an endemic one or not? Well, I believe we have to find the whole distribution
from records,
yeah,
from enumerations, from book accounts, and from papers, and from your supervisor.
Yeah, so Asi, basically you have to go to the library, browse the web, and do your job. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Taxonomists are detectives. But our subject is, well, biodiversity. Yeah.
But your enthusiasm is very bright, and we encourage you to continue to be enthusiastic. But these things cannot be learned from just a few sentences of advice. But I'd like to commend you on how interested you are. So keep it up.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good job, Asi. Keep going, okay?
Yeah, thank you, Alex.
And
Thank you,
from
Mr.
Muhammad
Boy.
Faisal, Undip, as we know, the mangrove ecosystem in East Borneo is known as Heart of Borneo, and it is home to an endemic species, Burgueda hainesi, which is only found in, okay. Is there any correlation between this and plant diversity you are researching?
Between what?
Is there any correlation between this endemic species and the plant diversity you are researching? I think he's trying to see the broader context in bigger picture. If we are talking about endemism, what is the correlation between endemism and the whole plant diversity that you have presented before? Does it make sense, or
Well,
I think that's what he's trying to say.
the Heart of Borneo project was started by the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF, at first, and it wanted different countries to participate and provide funding. WWF, of course, is not just a conservation organization. It is also a projects funding organization, which means it's asking for funds. And so the first stage of Heart of Borneo from WWF, they delimited essentially the mountain areas. That's the heart of Borneo. And then it got very badly criticized by scientists from all over, who said the main areas of emphasis for plant diversity is always in the lowlands. That's where the greatest extent of diversity exists. And you, as an international organization, want to protect the highlands. The highlands are being threatened in some way, but not as badly as the lowlands. Why are you keeping quiet about the lowlands and then starting a new project about the highlands? Okay, then eventually the different territories of Borneo got interested, and they held their own Heart of Borneo definition, if you like. And today, luckily, it includes not just highlands, but also some very important tracts of lowland vegetation. And I'm glad to hear that in East Borneo, they consider an endemic mangrove tree as being a special thing. I think that's the way to go. The highlands are very important now because a lot of lowlands are impacted, but they should continue to emphasize also the lowlands, in my opinion. And this is being done already in Brunei, in Sabah, and they are talking about corridors to link wildlife populations in Sabah too. And may I also say that corridors are also important for plants, not just for wildlife. So I hope this will be developed wisely and in this current understanding.
Okay, so that's a different perspective, right, Muhammad? So, yeah. Anything else from this room? Because we are running out of questions in the chat box. Yes, Michael, a quick one, please.
To support the research in botany, and then also, yeah, how the importance of the how the position of the herbarium to support the research in botany, especially for the plant taxonomy. Right now, like in the brain we have the regulation like herbarium is like a different department with the researcher. So I just like if you can
I'm
give.
so sorry, I have to ask you to start all over again. Yeah.
If you have like an opinion how it can impact for our research, like
what can impact?
Like what's like if like a herbarium like he's separate with the researcher, how it can impact for the research, especially for the biodiversity discourse. I mean like for the plant research in the botany, in the plant.
Can you make it shorter?
Yeah. Okay. Like right now, like a regulation in the brain, like herbarium is like a separate with the researcher. So I just like
is it really separate from a researcher?
Yes, it means like it's not like in the same like if we want to go into the herbarium, we need like have permission or something like that. So I just like need your like a personal opinion, like how to impact for the like research in Indonesia.
Well, I think as a plant researcher, you always work together with a herbarium, right? Either together with a collaborator in a herbarium, or to get permission to consult the specimens, right? Then that is support, right? I have not heard of a herbarium not supporting a researcher, but maybe not monetarily, because I mean, very few organizations have money to give out. Some herbaria do, yeah. But I think I'm the only one I know who has banned people from herbaria.
I mean,
sorry, Michael.
Our situation right now, like here, like we have a different department, like herbarium and also research and so.
Yeah.
What do you think, like in the next future, like in the future, how can we for like what happened with like something happened to our research?
Sorry to interrupt, but I think we're running out of time, and please feel free to continue after this session ends. And sorry, Kunmeng, he's a bright guy. You can talk to him like hours later. But right now, I have to close this session. And again, let's bring a very big round of applause to Kunmeng. Let's thank you for the lecture. And this is a very proper way to celebrate Pak Kuswata Kartawinata's life and achievement. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Since yeah, we're running out of time, I'll return. Okay, so the MC just gave me a privilege to end the session. So thank you very much for all the audience outside of this room as well as inside. And see you guys again in the next session of SOS of Research Center for Biosystematic and Evolution. Again, thank you all, and thank you, Kunmeng. Okay, cheers. Thank you.
Masukkan kayak silarian yang apa, tapi dengan cara itu masukkan itu proses seperti itu. Masukkan ke plastik dulu, plastik di blok, baru upload. Terus ada sebagian gitu. Kami tambahkan